The day everything started unraveling was an ordinary evening, one of those calm nights where nothing feels out of place and life appears perfectly stitched together. I remember walking into my apartment feeling exhausted but content, ready to unwind after a long day. My fiancée, Emma, was sitting on the couch, typing something intensely on her phone, barely noticing me walk in. She smiled, at least something that looked like a smile, but for the first time, it didn't reach her eyes the way it usually did. That tiny detail lingered in my mind far longer than it should have. Over the following days, the feeling that something was off only grew heavier in my chest. Emma began acting distant in ways I couldn't explain. Small changes, subtle shifts, tiny cracks forming in the walls we spent years building together. Her laughter sounded forced, her affection felt mechanical, and her conversations ended quicker than they began. When I'd ask if everything was all right, she'd brush it off with a tired excuse about wedding stress. I wanted to believe her, but a quiet voice inside me insisted that something darker was hiding beneath her excuses. Our wedding was only 3 weeks away, and everything was already planned with meticulous detail: venue booked, invitations sent, outfits chosen, meals selected. My family was excited, her family was thrilled, and every day felt like a countdown to the life we'd been dreaming of. But while the world celebrated our approaching future, I felt like I was the only one sensing something trembling beneath the surface. The more I tried to ignore it, the more impossible it became. Love had always been our anchor, but suddenly it felt like the weight pulling me underwater. One night, Emma went to take a shower, leaving her phone on the bed, something she normally never did. She guarded that device like it held national secrets, always keeping it flipped over or tucked away. I didn't plan on touching it. I told myself I wasn't that kind of person. But when it buzzed twice with the same name lighting up the screen, temptation overcame my restraint. The message preview said, "Is everything ready for the plan?" I stared at it as if time froze, and the air around me turned unbearably heavy. My heart pounded as I held her phone, torn between guilt and fear, but the growing dread pushed me to unlock it. My hands shook as I entered her passcode, a code she once freely shared, but recently changed, except she didn't know I'd seen it one morning when she typed it half asleep. The moment her messages opened, my world cracked into pieces I couldn't easily gather. I scrolled through conversation after conversation between her and a man named Ryan, a name she never mentioned, yet someone she'd been breathlessly texting. And with every message I read, the image of the woman I loved dissolved into someone I didn't recognize. They talked about me coldly, strategically, like I was some puzzle piece to be used and tossed aside. They referenced their relationship, one stretching back months, maybe longer, one filled with affection, secrets, and plans. What cut deepest was reading Emma say she felt forced into our engagement because her family expected it, not because she wanted it. She described me as safe, predictable, and easy to manipulate, words that stung more than any betrayal of affection. But the final blow was discovering a plan that twisted my stomach into knots. Emma wasn't planning to marry me. She was planning to leave the country with this man. Their plan involved gathering enough money beforehand, money she intended to get from me by pretending she needed extra funds for the wedding deposits. She wrote that once she collected the amount, she would disappear with him, leaving me humiliated and financially ruined. I had never felt such a violent mix of anger, heartbreak, and disbelief. The more I read, the more I realized she wasn't a confused fiancée, she was a calculated liar. When Emma stepped out of the shower, I pretended nothing was wrong, even though my hands were still trembling. She asked what I wanted for dinner, and her voice sounded like static, distant, and meaningless. I agreed to whatever she chose, keeping my tone steady, masking the storm erupting inside me. That night, I lay beside her pretending to sleep, while she scrolled through her phone, smiling at messages she thought I'd never see. The woman I once trusted felt like a stranger lying only inches away. The next morning, I woke up with a decision carved sharply in my mind. I needed proof more than screenshots, more than assumptions, more than the words I'd read. Something about her plan suggested criminal intent, and I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed after playing with my life. I spent the day gathering evidence carefully, saving everything, backing it up in multiple places, documenting our conversations step by step. Each message I archived felt like another knife through my chest, but I kept going because truth mattered more than pain. I confided in a lawyer, someone who immediately recognized that Emma's actions weren't just betrayal. They were part of a larger deception involving fraud. He advised me on how to proceed, how to avoid confrontation, and how to let the evidence speak louder than accusations. Following his advice, I distanced myself emotionally while continuing to let the wedding plans move forward as if nothing had changed. Every moment felt like walking across shattered glass. But beneath the hurt, a quiet fire grew, one fueled by the determination to protect myself. As days passed, Emma started pressuring me subtly about the money, reminding me of last-minute wedding expenses. She spoke with urgency, carefully crafted concern, and fake warmth designed to coax me into giving her the money she desperately wanted. But I played along, acting unaware, pretending to be the devoted fiancé who trusted her wholeheartedly. Each conversation made me sick, but I kept a calm expression, collecting everything she said. She believed she was close to winning, unaware of the storm closing in around her. The week before our wedding, I told her we needed to visit the bank together to finalize the transactions. Her excitement was almost unbearable to watch. She truly thought she had succeeded in deceiving me. But instead of walking into a bank, we walked into a meeting room at my lawyer's office, where officials waited to confront her. The moment she realized she'd been found out, the color drained from her face, like someone had pulled the life out of her. She stammered, denied, cried, begged, and accused, but the evidence was overwhelming. The authorities took over, reviewing everything carefully, and the truth unfolded in ways even I hadn't fully understood. Emma and her boyfriend had done this before, scamming people, manipulating their emotions, and vanishing with money they never earned. It wasn't just a broken heart. It was part of a pattern. The betrayal felt deeper than anything I'd imagined, a wound carved with precision. Watching her being taken away wasn't satisfying. It was devastating, but it was justice. The wedding was immediately canceled, and word spread quickly among our families and friends. Some were shocked, some angry, and others quietly whispered condolences, like someone had died. In a way, something had died the future I once envisioned, the love I once believed in, and the person I once thought Emma was. The days that followed were heavy, filled with questions I couldn't answer, and emotions that refused to settle. I felt empty, drained, and numb. But life, unpredictable as it is, never stops moving. In the weeks after everything fell apart, I focused on rebuilding my life emotionally, financially, and mentally. I leaned on friends who refused to let me fall apart, and on family who reminded me that betrayal, no matter how painful, doesn't define my worth. Slowly, I felt myself healing inch by inch. Pain didn't disappear, but it softened around the edges. One day, during an event I attended reluctantly, I met someone unexpected, a woman named Lily. She wasn't flashy or overwhelming. She was calm, grounded, and carried an energy that felt almost healing. We talked casually at first, nothing forced or complicated, just two strangers exchanging stories about life and mistakes. She listened without judgment, without trying to fix anything, without making me feel broken. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Our conversations grew, from simple exchanges to deeper discussions about trust, resilience, and the strange ways life redirects us. Lily wasn't trying to replace anyone. She was simply there, genuine, steady, and real. She made me laugh effortlessly, something I hadn't done in months. And as we spent more time together, I realized I wasn't comparing her to anyone. I was getting to know her for who she truly was. Something warm slowly sparked in my chest. Healing wasn't linear, we both acknowledged that. But Lily never pressured me to rush, never rushed herself, and never treated me like a project or a wounded soul. Instead, she became someone I enjoyed being around, someone who reminded me that love isn't supposed to feel like manipulation or fear. Love should be honest, simple, and safe. And without forcing it, she showed me exactly that. Months passed, and our connection grew at a pace that felt natural. We shared inside jokes, long talks, and quiet moments that spoke louder than words. I found myself wanting to build new memories, not to cover the old ones, but to create a life defined by something better. A life shaped by authenticity instead of deception. With Lily, everything felt different in the best possible way. One evening, while we watched the sunset together, she asked me gently if I regretted everything that happened with Emma. I paused, thinking carefully, then admitted that while the pain was real, it led me to understand myself better. It taught me what love should never be and what I truly deserved. It introduced me to strength I didn't know I had. And without that painful ending, I might never have crossed paths with her. Lily smiled softly and squeezed my hand, and that small gesture felt like the final step in closing a long, agonizing chapter. At that moment, I realized that sometimes heartbreak is just a brutal detour leading you to the right destination. Betrayal didn't break me. It redirected me. And as I looked at Lily beside me, peaceful and honest, I felt grateful for where life had led me. In the end, I didn't just escape a disastrous marriage. I found a new beginning. One built not on illusions or pressure, but on trust, kindness, and sincerity. I learned that the wrong person will drain you, while the right person will heal you. And sometimes, the most painful truth leads to the most beautiful outcome. My story didn't end with betrayal, it began with it.